Mark Zuckerberg, the co-founder, chairman, and CEO of Meta Platforms, Inc., formerly Facebook, is one of the most influential figures in the tech world. He launched Facebook in 2004 from his Harvard dorm room, which quickly grew into the world's largest social network. Over the years, Zuckerberg has expanded Meta's reach by acquiring Instagram in 2012, WhatsApp in 2014, and Oculus in the same year. However, Zuckerberg has constantly faced intense criticism regarding the social, political, and business impact of his growing empire. Despite this, he continues to evolve, both personally and as a leader. Recently, Zuckerberg has shifted Meta's focus towards artificial intelligence and the metaverse, while positioning Meta as a major player in the open-source AI movement. In contrast to competitors like OpenAI and Google, which guard their models under proprietary systems, Meta is pushing for a more open, collaborative future for AI. Let's take a look at an interview with Mark Zuckerberg, conducted by Rowan Cheung, where they discuss all things AI.
I've thought for a while that open source AI was going to become the industry standard, and I thought that it would basically follow the path that Linux did, where if you just go back to before Linux was popular, there were all these companies that had their own closed versions of Unix, and at the time, there's nothing that was sort of that sophisticated that had ever been done as an open source project. And people thought, hey, no, this is like the closed model of development is the only way to do something that's this advanced. And at first, Linux kind of got its foothold because it was cheaper, because developers could customize it in different ways. And then over time, as the ecosystem built out, it got more scrutiny, so it actually became the more secure one. It became the more advanced one. There were more partners that basically had built more capabilities, in the case of Linux, more drivers, and things like that, that basically ended up making it have more capabilities as well than any closed source Unix.
To grasp what Zuckerberg is saying, it's important to understand that there are two primary types of AI models: open source and closed source. Open source AI allows developers to access, modify, and share the underlying code freely. Closed source AI, on the other hand, keeps the code proprietary, restricting access and control to the company that developed it. Zuckerberg is a strong advocate for open source AI, envisioning its potential to reach the same transformative scale as Linux. Created in 1991, Linux is one of the most successful open source operating systems, now powering a vast range of systems, from supercomputers to smartphones via Android.
It's the first open source frontier level model, but it's not the first frontier level model. So there have been other models that sort of have that capacity. And yeah, people are going to want to do inference directly on the 405 because it's, by our estimates, it's going to be about 50% cheaper, I think, than GPT-4o to do that directly. And so I think that obviously makes a difference to a lot of people. But the thing that I think is really new in the world with this is because it's open weights, the ability to take the model and distill it down to whatever size that you want, to use it for synthetic data generation, to use it as a teacher model. So our vision for the future, it's not just, okay, it was never that there's going to be one singular thing. I think this is like OpenAI sort of has this vision that they're going to build kind of one big AI. Anthropic does too. Google does too. It's never been our vision. Our vision is that there should be lots of different models. I think every startup out there, every enterprise, governments, they all kind of want to have their own custom models. And yeah, when the closed ecosystem was so much better than open source, it was just better to take the vanilla closed thing off the shelf, because even though you could customize open source, there was still some gap between the performance that you could get. But now we don't see that anymore. Right now, as open source basically closes the gap, I think you're just going to see this wide proliferation of models where people now have the incentive to basically customize and build and train exactly the right size model for what they're doing.
Zuckerberg sees Llama 3.1 as a crucial milestone for open source AI, with the potential to become the industry's open source AI standard. By providing a customizable and cost-effective alternative to closed systems, like those from OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic, Meta aims to make AI more accessible, enabling startups, enterprises, and governments to build their own tailored AI solutions.
My view is that open source is a really important ingredient to having a positive AI future. And that there are all these awesome things that AI is going to bring in terms of productivity gains and creativity enhancements for people. And hopefully it'll help us with research and things like that. But I think open source is an important part of how we make sure that this benefits everyone and is accessible to everyone and isn't something that's just locked into a handful of big companies. Um, at the same time, I actually think that open source is going to end up being the safer and more secure way to develop AI. I know that there's sort of a debate today about is open source safe? And I actually take the different position on it. It's not only do I think it's safe, I think it's safer than the alternative of closed development. And
Zuckerberg's open source AI strategy seeks to make cutting-edge AI available to everyone, potentially sparking a new wave of global innovation. He believes this approach is not only more inclusive, but also safer than closed development, predicting it will help level the playing field in technological progress worldwide.
then you get to the question of basically, you know, folks like China or like large sophisticated actors. And one of the questions that you sometimes hear debated is like, okay, if you're open sourcing the really advanced models, how do you make it so that it doesn't get to China or they're not going to use that against us? Um, and that's sometimes an argument that people have for, hey, you should lock down development. But I think that that's sort of missing a few things. One is that in order for this all to work, the US has to have an advantage in the first place, or the West. And in kind of our advantage is basically open and decentralized innovation, where it's not just a small number of big companies or labs, it's startups and universities and individuals hacking on things who aren't even parts of companies. And that's a big part of it. And you don't want to shut that down. So, and I think if you do, you increase the chance that we don't even lead in the first place. But then I think you get to the issue, which is okay, like China or not even China, any government. There are all the risks of kind of stealing the models and espionage. I mean, a lot of the models fit on a hard drive that you can quickly put in your backpack or whatever. And it's I just think we need to be realistic about how likely it is that we can secure and not us, but like any of the tech companies can secure any of these models long term against very sophisticated efforts to do that. So my own fear is that if we lock down development, we end up in a world where basically you have a small number of companies plus all the adversaries who can steal the model are the only ones who have access, but all the startups, all the universities, all the individual hackers are kind of just left out and don't have the ability to do this. So my own view is that a realistic aim that we should hope for is that we use open source to basically develop the leading and most robust ecosystem in the world, in that we have an expectation that our companies work closely with our government and allied governments on national security, so that way our governments can persistently just be integrating the latest technology and have a whatever it is, a 6-month advantage, 8-month advantage on our adversaries. And I think that that's I don't know that in this world you get a 10-year permanent advantage, but I think a kind of perpetual lead actually will make us more safe in one where we're leading than the model that others are advocating, which is okay, you have a small number of closed labs, they lock down development, we probably risk being in the lead at all, like probably the other governments are getting access to it.
Some people argue that open sourcing AI will allow other countries, like China, to copy and use it. Mark disagrees, saying that trying to keep AI secret won't work and will only slow down innovation in the US. He believes that open source will give the US and its allies a competitive advantage by fostering innovation faster than countries with closed systems.
I think that AI has more potential than any other single technology that's being developed right now to increase productivity, accelerate the economy, make it so that kind of every person has the ability to be more creative and produce more interesting things. And I think that that's all going to be great. I also think I hope that it'll help out with science and medical research and things like that. There are a lot of folks today, though, who don't necessarily have access to the ability to fine tune or build their own state of the art models. So they're sort of limited to what these large labs do. Um, and like I just said, I think one of the defining aspects of our culture around innovation as a sort of a country or society is like it's not just big companies that do it, right? There's all these startups and hackers and academics and people in university. And I think you want to give all of those folks access to state of the art models that they can build on top of. Not just that they can run, which is what they have today with the closed vendors, but that they can build on top of and tweak and distill down to smaller models that they can run on their laptop or their phone or whatever other device they're building. And I think that that's just going to unlock a ton of progress. There's also a version of this where you can look at it by um, nation too. So it's not just that startups might not have the resources or universities might not have the resources to go train their own large scale foundation models now or in the future, but there are a lot of countries that aren't going to have the ability to do that because I mean, pretty soon these things are going to cost many billions of dollars to train, and um, I think that having the ability for different countries and entrepreneurs in different countries and businesses to use it to serve people better and just do better work is going to be something that basically like lifts all boats around the world and it just has a massive kind of equalizing effect. So I think that that's really positive, and that's one of the places where we get the most thanks for this is not actually the tech community, but it's like different developing countries or other countries that want to have access to the technology and do stuff with it. Um, but wouldn't necessarily have the tech field themselves to produce something that is state of the art that their businesses can build on top of. But once they have it, it's actually pretty easy to go train your own thing. So that's a pretty neat part of this.
To sum up, Zuckerberg believes AI holds more potential than any other current technology, and everyone, including startups, academics, entrepreneurs, and developing countries, should have access to a frontier-level AI model that they can build on, tweak, and distill down to smaller models to run on their own devices.
A lot of what we're focused on is giving every creator and every small business the ability to create AI agents for themselves, making it so that every person on our platforms can create their own AI agents that they want to interact with. And if you think about it, these are just huge spaces, right? So there are hundreds of millions of small businesses in the world. And one of the things I think is really important is basically making it so with a relatively small amount of work, um, a business can basically, a few taps, stand up an AI agent for themselves that can do customer support, sales, communicate with all their people, all their customers. I kind of think that every business in the future, just like they have an email address and a website and a social media presence today, I think every business is going to have an AI agent that their customers can talk to in the future. And we want to enable that for all of those. So it's going to be hundreds of millions, maybe billions of kind of small business agents. Similar deal for creators. There are it's more than 200 million people on our platforms who consider themselves creators, who basically use our platform in a way that is primarily for building a community, putting out content. Feel like it's kind of like a part of their job is doing that, and they all have this basic issue, which is that there aren't enough hours in the day to engage with their community as much as they'd like. And likewise, I think that their communities would generally want more of their time, but again, not enough hours in the day. So I just think there's going to be a huge unlock where basically every creator can pull in all their information from social media, can train these systems to reflect their values and their business objectives and what they're trying to do, and then people can interact with that. It'll be almost like this almost artistic artifact that creators create that people can kind of interact with in different ways, and that's not even getting into all the different ways that I think people are going to be able to create different AI agents for themselves to do different things. So I think we're going to live in a world where there are going to be hundreds of millions of billions of different AI agents, eventually probably more AI agents than there are people in the world, and that people are just going to interact with them in all these different ways. So that's part of that's the product vision. Obviously, there's a lot of business opportunity in that. That's where we want to go make money. So we're not going to make money from selling access to the model itself, because again, we're not a public cloud company. We will make money by building the best products. an important ingredient to the best products is having the best models, which having the best kind of ecosystem around open source will help us do. So that's why it's kind of all aligned for us, and why this is going to end up, I think, being really valuable for us to build the highest quality products that we can, and have the best business results by kind of building out this open source community. But it's also why it's all philosophically aligned, right? We just don't believe that there's going to be kind of one big AI, whether it's a product or a model that everyone uses. We kind of fundamentally believe in having this broad diversity and different set of models, and that every business and people are just going to want a lot of their own stuff that they're going to make. And I think that that's kind of going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot of what makes this interesting.
In this section, Zuckerberg discusses Llama 3.1 and how it provides the source code for creating AI agents. Meta's goal isn't to profit by selling access to the model itself, but by setting the industry standards and developing the best products and services around that AI model. We're at the beginning of something big, and Meta wants the world to join them on this journey. What do you think about Zuckerberg's vision for open source AI? Let us know in the comments below. That's it for today, folks. Thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe for more exciting content.